Welcome to Derby Chat with All For Him Racing videos, where we sit down and chat with those making an impact in the sport of demolition derby. And today I get to sit down with the one and only Mark Elliott. And we're going to be talking about the 2022 point series. Can you believe we're already talking about it? And it's trying to bring it all to a closure of what just happened.
Yeah, and 2023 is already on top of us, man. So put this stamp on it is like, here we go.
Yeah, so how do you feel about 3 years? Did you ever think that you would get through 3 years when you started doing the very first unified point series, and here you are 3 years in? How do you feel about that?
This is the God's honest truth. Our ring sponsor for the championship rings is James Cooley. He was the best man at my wedding. He's a gold going on platinum sponsor that's just a close friend and has been for a long time. Used to be my right-hand man building cars. Just Saint James is what we call him. It's as good as God made him. He's an angel on earth. But this is God's honest truth. When we started, and it was his idea, like, man, you need a ring. And like one thing led to another in that conversation. The truth is he wanted to buy like 10 years worth of rings.
Oh, wow.
That day. And, so I manage and go in and pick out the rings, and then he reimburses. But he saw maybe something that I didn't, and I did not pull the trigger on that. We've bought him 1 year at a time,
mm-hmm.
but hopefully that answers your question. That no, I really had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into, and what a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen these guys and gals just step out of their own comfort zone to achieve something they probably didn't even realize they could achieve, right? Or chase after something that they're still going to chase after this year. And I think what also gets me excited is knowing that somebody's probably at home listening to this and building next year's car already.
100%.
How does that make you feel?
100%. Let's just throw it out there. Good friend Michael Ambergy sent me a text today, and it just never ceases to amaze me when somebody out of the blue sends a text that they have some interest, that it's just like, and you never know what state it's going to be from, or, I wasn't expecting somebody from Tennessee to send that text. So like it adds a reality that I don't know that I'll ever fully grasp of what it means to other people. I know what it means to me. And like, just to think about the support that we get from people like you and our 70 plus sponsors, it just like, it really, you said something. We give away a lot of money. We give away the most money that we ever have this year. So we've continued to increase year after year.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first year we did like 27,963. The last year it was, I don't know, 37 something, 30. This year it's like 42,000 and some change. And, like, I'm starting to wonder how much that matters because of what it means to people and their family, and whether it's their brother or their pit man or you mentioned the females, like you just never know. And I've never claimed that we've got the right science or it's the right thing, because, people talk about, well, I think it should all be separate. Like, well, I didn't personally think of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we started it, and it's so great that you're not going to catch me changing, right?
Yeah.
So I suggest that they can start something up like that. But what we got going on with the females, the youth, you're there, you see it. It's crazy.
Do you happen to know how many drivers actually scored points this year?
It's between 500 and 600. It's the most.
Wow.
So like, take yourself back. The first year was the year of COVID. And I think we started out, we were close to 30. I don't know. We started out, but then a lot got canceled. And so we ended up the first year with like 23 or 24.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from that to 38.
Yeah.
And then last year I tried to back it off because it was just too much. And we got it down to down to 31 last year. And, I'm sure we're going to get into the detail, but we just continue to scale back because it's got to serve the drivers well, and it's got to serve me well.
Sure. Because you're at every single one of those shows.
Everyone, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's something that's been questioned. There's that connection piece that I'm the announcer for the shows, and not everybody understands that, and I'm okay with that. They don't have to. What it is for me, I get to be a part of that journey. So one, that's a huge plus for me because it makes me enjoy my job even more, which I already love. But to be a part of those experiences with those families, I just feel like if we opened it up where I wasn't a part of that, and maybe I wasn't even at the show, because we have done that. I have allowed people in past years where they scored and then I just got the results by text, or maybe I had to chase them down. There was always a hassle to it, but I didn't have any connection. I did not see what those drivers did that night. And you know as well as I do, we have experiences on that track that in this life or the next we'll never be able to explain. And for me to be there and to feel it and to see it, you just cannot. That is so important to me.
Yeah, and I think I would put it in terms as well of it. I guess it's hard to put into words, but if I wouldn't have seen some of the journeys that these people had, I wouldn't believe it. If you were just to tell me what they did, I don't know if I'd fully believe it. But you see what the obstacles they were willing to face, to challenge, hearing about people working extra or having to leave the Derby because they got to work in the morning. They're going to drive through the night and go to work first thing with no sleep 100%. Because they were chasing points.
You couldn't be more right. And I don't believe it sometimes when I see it. Like it never ceases to amaze me. We've seen some things this year. We defied the odds a little bit this year when we'll get more into that with JD, but it just, sometimes things that I've been involved with in my life, they kind of get a rhythm, and that's kind of how they go. And we've had 3 real different stories. So, I don't know where that plateaus, but it's not on year 3. Right. So is not on year 3. So what, 2023, our 4th year. And when you think about, wow, 4 after 4 comes 5, and like maybe James was right. Maybe we should have bought them rings, but I never would have known because we changed the tagline every year. Those 3 words we kind of build off of, like what really showed up in that season that needs to be on that next ring. What is it? What's the message that we're taking into that following year? So like to think about year 5 is just like, wow, man, some businesses never make it through year 5. So to think that we're going to be coming up on that ceiling, and to think that it didn't just happen, like you got to break through that ceiling to make your way for the next, and the next one to be 10, and like
just see what happens, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, what would be some advice, or what would you say to somebody who's looking to get involved in the Point Series? Do you have any advice or things from now that you've seen it a few years?
So I'll answer that a couple different ways. So from a driver standpoint, the most common thing that I would hear is, I could never do that. I don't have time for that. Man, I work 2 jobs, or, I've got this thing with my family, and, man, I'd love to do that. Boy, Mark, 10 years ago, man, if you caught me in the late 90s, or if you caught me in the mid 2000s, man, that would have been me. I hear all that and I believe every word of it, because like when we say those things, like that's reality. But when I take myself back to the 3 guys that have got it done, they've said the same thing. Like, it's not until somebody gets that hook and they get that taste, and what that could be, ultimate fighting, that could be boxing, that could be anything, race car driving. It's once we get that taste and that hook. So for anybody, just to say to the drivers out there, if you have any interest in what we do as the experience, because we know Derby money, we're going to make it, we're going to spend it. Like, it's the revolving cycle. But if you see the magazine stuff, and if you see the rings and all these things that make up the experience, and that's something that you want, man, run a show. and see how you do. And if you score, run another one. See how you do, because that's how it happens.
And that's the great thing about your point series is that you could just show up and run. You don't have to pay anything, and if you win, you're gonna get paid.
Yes.
And how cool is that? I mean, the barrier of entry is so unlimited that way.
It is, and that is certainly something that I've kind of always said, and we'll touch on that. So from a vendor standpoint, so we talk about with 70 plus sponsors. I get text all the time, like, I don't know when that stops. I'm so grateful for that. Just got a new one today or yesterday. I think some Kentucky friends are like, hey, what's the detail? They want to know the detail. If there's one of many things that I can do better, is get that stuff out there for what that even means. So there's bronze all the way up to platinum. What does that even mean for people? And I somewhat joke when I say it, but I really mean it from the heart. Like, I would never be able to do for those sponsors what I want to because of how much I appreciate what they do for us. I say that they're the backbone of the Unified Point Series, and I'm just a heartbeat that keeps the blood pumping. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because those drivers, when they call and say, what's this pay or what's that pay, or somebody, the 2 weeks before Christmas gets a several $1,000 check, and maybe they have a better Christmas because of that, or maybe they go out and buy a new Collier or whatever. Well, not that JD, but it just means so much. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the sponsors, if you're ever on our website, and that's where we're at right now, you can see a sponsor page. And so what we do here, we break it up from platinum all the way down to bronze. And this is fun because I've never read this since the day I put it on here. It says, you have all made sacrifice to help us raise the average of Demolition Derby. We sincerely thank you for your partnership with the ME527 Unified Point Series. Together, we will enhance the quality of every show. It's the first time I've ever read that. We just put that on there. And so the way that works, you start out with platinum, and let's just scroll down through. Look at these sponsors and the names and the way they touch the sport. Try to respectfully not go too fast here. These are all platinum sponsors, so they got their name on the shirt this year. Then we get down to gold, and we got some new sponsors. Hey, there's All For Him. Right. Yeah, shout out, All For Him Racing. And then we get down into the silver, which is how they get their logo on the banner. And then
what's this banner you talk about, Mark?
Banner. It's funny you say that. So one of our sponsors, GH Graphics, creates the traveling banner, and we carry that from show to show, and we try to fly it everywhere. Now we got to get creative sometimes because there's not always a crow's nest. But the idea,
they need to expand onto the crow's nest just to give room for
it's like 12 foot by 15 foot, but 16 foot, but it has those folks on it. And even the bronze sponsors, they don't get a logo, but they get their name on there. And it just means so much to us, and it carries the mud all year long. We don't clean it.
Oh yeah.
We roll it up. I've got it down to a science. I used to roll it, and there's a big tube hanging out of my truck, and now I've got it folded since I put the tonneau on, and we go from show to show. And at the end of the year, George just allows us to actually raffle that off. And we put that money right back into the following year. Every dollar of it. We don't, everybody knows that those raffles suck. The waffles, they're a lot of work, but we just take that money and put it right back in. I think this year we got like 1,800.
That's sweet.
That's every dollar that goes in there, whether it pays for a shipping cost to ship out some of the Ruts Fab trophies, or it pays part of the first place. Like, every dollar that we can put back into it just enhances the driver experience. So we'll just continue to go down through here since we showed all of them. We'll go nice and slow. There's bronze now, some new sponsors in there. Every one of these people, I could tell a story, but then we'd have to have another podcast because they've all either became friends or they were already good longtime friends. And I do want to mention Preble County Fair on there. They've already upped their sponsorship for next year.
That's awesome.
So they went from bronze to gold. So that's near and dear to my heart, being that that's my hometown, and that is where the Smith Metalworks Expo is at. This, I don't want to make this about that, but I cannot pass Preble County without mentioning that, because that does really mean a lot to me. But the last thing I want to say, if anybody ever goes on our website and looks at these sponsors, is all you have to do is click on any of these, and it's hyperlinked. It'll if those people have a page or they have a website, it takes them right there. So if they want to buy parts, sign up for a derby, check out what John Sanders is doing today, because I don't even think he has a Facebook, so you're gonna have to look harder for some of the. But that just tells you the sponsors are, some of them are just people that just want to help, and some of them are the top tier vendors of the sport. It's such a collective group. Yeah,
and the thing I think also I'd like to make note of, just having spoken to a number of these folks, they don't ask what's in it for me. You know, they're not asking that kind of question. They're asking, how can I help? They want to be part of something bigger that can help the sport as a whole. And I think that's what gets me really excited. It's not how can they most benefit from it, because I mean, it can be really hard to get the exposure. You know, it's not just to drive traffic to their business and to have their logo on the banner. It's to be part of something bigger for the sport. And that's exciting.
I'm glad you said that, Alex, because that really means a lot to me. Because I do believe if they had huge expectations, I would fail them miserably. There's been very few cases where, you know, somebody just kind of challenged me a little bit on like what they kind of got out of it, or maybe they just didn't return. And that's an easy conversation for me. It's like, thank you so much for your support. If it's not good for you, I don't want you to be a part of it, because I want it to be good for both of us. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Like, I take no offense to that whatsoever. And I'm glad you brought that up, because they really do selflessly give, and they just don't knock on my door and say, what did you do for me? And why didn't you promote my parts or my show or whatever the case? So I'm glad you said that.
So how can somebody become a sponsor, Mark?
It's as easy as a message. They just reach out to me. Reach out to me on Facebook, on the announcing page, or in Messenger, or you don't have to look too far to find my phone number. And it is always a blessing when especially if I don't know them, because then that's going to be a new relationship and a new journey. And a lot of times I'll say something like that. I look forward to where this goes, and in our case, to a great friendship. So it's truly a blessing. So,
man, what a season.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to believe. I mean, in a couple of weeks, it's going to be 2023, going to be going on the 4th year for the Unified Point Series. I don't want to jump right to the chase, but what are the rules for next season going to be, Mark? Or do you want to give them how about let's take a step back from that. What's the schedule look like first? Let's start with that, and then we'll circle back.
Oh, you know what I love about this, because I have such fun doing this, Alex. And if I did anything different this time than I've ever done, I did not plan. So you just keep putting me on the spot, and I'll just keep that smile on my face. I'm excited that you're going to go there. So for the schedule, which I did post it, the significance of this year's schedule is 2 years ago we had 38 shows, I'd mentioned, and then 31. And this year, 23, which is really going to be 22 because of the Florida show canceling. Yep. So 22 shows. That's close to a 30% reduction.
Which, on a personal level, thank you.
Yeah. Now you can go elsewhere. Yeah.
Just trying to keep up with you, Mark.
I've already got some questions like, well, are you still going to announce, outside of that? And it's like, I didn't just do this for the drivers. I did it for me and my family too. That's one vow that I make to my family. I don't want to be gone every weekend. I enjoy it. A couple weekends in a row, and I'm ready to get back out after it. Yep. But in the perfect world, if if it was like 1 to 2 shows a month, like that would just be perfect. But it never works out that way because promoters do their best to get their show in whenever they can, and they're all fighting for the date, and they want to make sure that they get the most cars that they can. But one of the coolest things, I want to give the sponsors a shout out here. So 22 shows that we're going to have on this schedule. And that was one of that text that I said I got earlier from Michael.
Yep.
That was one of the things he was excited about, because he was one of the guys that just felt like, man, I just don't have time for all that. But now that we're talking about getting closer to 20, you know, it gives somebody like that hope that, well, maybe I actually could keep up with something like this. So the shout out that I want to give to the sponsors is, look at it like this. To have a show in the Unified Point Series for the first 3 years, it cost promoters $250. So if they had one show, they were a bronze sponsor. So what we've learned in those 3 years is promoters naturally get more advertising. There's videos on my Facebook, you know, there's advertising leading up to the show. There's after videos. There's all these things, which is great. But maybe there's a sponsor next to them that's a bronze, equal bronze sponsor, and maybe their name never gets mentioned but one time. So like we saw a little bit of a gap there. So knew I wanted to do something, just not what. Well, in looking at scaling back, it's like, okay, so if you think about that, 31 shows at $250 a show, that's $7,750. I think my math's right on that. That goes right into that purse that I said was over $40,000.
Right.
Well, the shout out I want to give to the sponsors I'm so excited about, by dropping back. So I basically told him, you each can only have 2 shows. Now, some people only had 1, so it really didn't affect them. But somebody like our good buddy Frankie that had 7 last year, you know, that was a difficult conversation. Because he wanted more, right? He always has. And he would take more if we would give more. So that's how we got it back to 22, by putting that 2 show cap per promoter.
Okay.
But then we said, we're going to increase the entry 100%. To have 1 show on the Unified Point Series, you're going to be a silver sponsor. So it's $500 per show now. So quick math to round that and put the bow on it. We go from 31 shows that's producing $7,750 straight to the purse, every dollar of it. It'll always be like that. To having 23 shows, at $500 a show, that's $11,500.
That's just that much more for the drivers.
So we almost increased the purse for the drivers. So shout out to you sponsors. Unbelievable. Almost $4,000 more going into that purse, and less shows for the drivers, which it's a double win for the drivers.
Right. Now, how many promoters are on board then?
I think around 14. 15-ish. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep. It's somewhere in there. It's 14 to 16. So, again, my hometown fair, Preble County, man, they went from bronze to, in doing that, like they had to talk about it. You know, that's something that, and I gave them the out, like, hey, you know, don't think for a second like that you're going to do this and like you're going to get all these cars. Like, I'm not guaranteeing that. I'm just guaranteeing that, you know, you're going to get some out of state people. Like, it's going to be a good experience. If you don't want to do it, I'll still be there to announce. Like, I still support you guys. And they did it. So it really meant a lot to me that they jumped on board.
And I'm seeing a number of different states here. So fair bit of miles again.
Yeah.
But West Virginia and all over the place.
Yes.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Some new ones in there.
All right. So I think people are probably chomping. What's in store for the rules for 23?
Well, let's do this, because if I was 100% on this, it would already be on the website. But boy, I'm in the high 90s. So I'm just going to lay out some heavy hitters here.
All right.
And like, I really am excited, but I just want to be real that I'm also really nervous, because, you know, it's like setting that, okay, promoters, this is what I'm asking of you. We're gonna increase your buy-in 100%. It's a big increase. You know, talk about being vulnerable, because my fear of the unknown was that there were going to be some that said, no, not for us. And, then then there's that rejection. And, so like the fact that they all went in, like it just meant so much, like just to know that we have that level of support, that every one of them said, yes, we're in. It just, that being said, some of the things I'm going to say here, man, as well as I do, since I started this thing, and since you take yourself back to when you and I sat up on the mountain at that barbecue place.
Yeah. Just throwing ideas
and talking, like, I've never had the master plan. What I do commit to is we look at gaps. We look at the data, like what's a pain point, and then we try to take marginal gains towards solving them. Maybe it's not the home run. Maybe it's the base hit. Maybe it's. Yep. So that being said, you can tell how nervous I am. Woo! Alex Vasco, you already said one of the beautiful things about the Unified Point Series is that all they have to do is just score, and they don't even have to sign up, and they're going to get paid anyway. You say that because I have said over and over, I've gloated about that. Look, man, you don't even have to care. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like this. You don't have to agree with anything. We're about winning. And if you win and you cross paths with us enough, you're going to get paid. I've said that, and I've meant that. And I never said that in a way that I have never taken anything for granted, but something happened to me this year that changed my mindset on that.
Okay.
So a sponsor reached out to me about how it made them feel when perceptually, let's keep it at perceptually, because it doesn't mean they were right. Right? Like, I think Alex Vasco thinks this, and I think his intentions are this, and that's usually bullcrap when we do that to people, because that's just that's the story in our head of what Alex Vasco's showing up as. So I just want to point that out, because this sponsor, it's not that what they said made me think and believe how they felt, but it just gave me a new perspective, no different than when you convinced me that it's probably a good idea to have a top 10, because if you remember, I just wanted to do top 3 and screw everybody else. Like, we're paying the winners, and you're like, I don't know, Mark, you want to get it. And that has proven to be true. So that was great perspective that time up on the mountain. Well, so what this sponsor said was, it just kind of, I don't recall the way they put it, but it kind of hurt their feelings that perceptually they thought that not everybody in the top 10, whether they were talking about this year or last year or the year before, really cared that much.
Interesting.
Right? And so for me, I've always said the opposite. I've always said, like, that's one thing that's cool for me, because it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about what they think. It doesn't matter to me if they care. Stop winning if you don't want our money. Like, I've almost joked about it. I never dreamed in my life that somebody would feel that way, that they're like, I want to continue to give my money. I really want to give it to people that love what you're doing the way I love what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, so with a lot of thought and deliberation, you will have to be a registered driver to earn rewards in the Unified Point Series moving forward.
Okay, so what does it mean to be registered?
So I will just read this. Okay. And in full disclaimer, like, if anything gets changed, I will communicate it. But I've got nothing to hide here. I'm excited about this, and I'm glad you're kind of pushing me to share it. So drivers must actually be registered to receive year-end rewards and recognition. What does being a registered driver mean? Okay. Well, for starts, in addition to any points earned at a show, a registered driver will receive 2 points for every show they run on our schedule after being registered. So after being registered, they don't get to go to a show and score and then be like, well, I'm going to sign up now. I need my 2 bonus points. You know, if somebody says like, you know what, I'm going to try that, they need to register, because that way when they score,
they get that extra 2 point, which we've seen 2 points.
Yes, we
2
points. Have. And, you know, I've always been, you know, I'm that guy that's like either win or do better. And there's no in between. But I'm also that guy that promotes, you know, I say things like, hard work doesn't always pay off, but it always pays better. Yep. And the efforts that I seen people do this year, like let's just pick on Bill Miller before we get too far to him, but like people driving hours, like stuff we've seen Santel do in the past, and just knowing the amount of work that they did. Maybe they fixed their car in a hotel parking lot. And when I've seen people in the past score 4th place and not get any points, and they're just disgusted on their 12-hour ride home, I've not had much empathy for that. But I'm telling you, my mindset has changed so much this year as I've grown, and as I've really pay attention to like what really pushes this along. So if they're a registered driver and they come, that's 2 points.
So do they get 2 points whether they score or not?
Yes.
As long as
they're a registered driver.
As long as they're registered. Yes.
Now,
okay.
You know, okay, Mark, well, what does that look like if at the end of the year we only have 9 people that registered? Well, then we have 9 people that we pay.
Yep.
And that's gonna guarantee that no sponsor ever feels that the money that they're giving to something that they love, because they don't just give it, like they really believe in it, and they believe in me. And, you know, again, I'm not writing any stories about who cares and who doesn't. Like, I don't get caught up in all that.
Yeah.
But if somebody takes the time to register and say, I'm a Unified Point Series driver, and at the end of the year, there's a list in Demolition Derby Life magazine that they're a Unified Point Series driver of 2023, and then there's a shirt that they all get that's got their name on it that says, you know, that's part of that experience and that memory for them. So just going down through here, so it's like, okay, well, how do they do that? Well, we're going to try to set it up on our website. So then we've got the list. Okay, well, what does that look like? Let's start out at $100. We're going to start out at $100. And this is the part I'm really uncomfortable to share, but I'm really pushing myself out of my comfort zone this year.
Sure.
Out of that $100, okay, where does that go? Well, half of that $100, so 50% of that $100 is going to driver experience. So like I'm always spending money on, like, whether it's a card for somebody, or maybe it's their wife, or maybe it's like, it's all these things that I always want to do. Like I'm all the time wanting to buy gas cards, and like, it just never stops. The experience, like the sky's the limit for how much you want to do for them. So instead of taking sponsor money to do stuff like that, we can take driver registration money to enhance the driver experience.
Nice.
The other 50%, this is where I struggle. The other 50% is going to go to me.
Okay.
So I've never taken or made $1 off this. And in full transparency, my wife is not okay with the amount of work that I put in without, you know, you and I both know I'll probably still spend it on everybody anyway. I say that jokingly, but it's more than another full-time job. And it's like the part that excites me, like the part that helps me sleep about that at night, is because I also have people behind the scenes that help me. Shannon Davis is our website manager. You know, they do that stuff out of the kindness of their heart. Her daughter is the auditor, Erica Davis. Every time I come home from a show, I'm sending them. Shannon's updating the website. Erica's doing the audit to make sure at the end that I'm paying the right people, and my Excel spreadsheet's telling the truth. And, you know, just brainstorming now, but, you know, Mal, maybe we can help take care of those people as well. So, I don't know what that looks like, but to start out, that's going to guarantee that everybody at the end of the year that is going to reap the rewards, the trophies, and make the money off this is somebody that says, I like it enough to say that I'm a part of it. I'm a registered driver.
And I like it.
Yeah. So that's definitely something, again, putting myself out there and being vulnerable, that people could say, nah, we're not interested, or they could laugh at it, or they could, they could write stories about, I got to shut all that stuff down.
Yep.
I've put a lot of thought into it. I've prayed about it. I have family support, so that's the direction that we're going, and it's going to be interesting. So, like the fun part I didn't mention about that is, so what if it is only 30 people instead of 530? Then that's a little bit easier to manage for me.
I guess so.
But there will be more details to come on that, of what that looks like. Well, how do I tell the registered from the non-registered? But that's like the biggest piece. And another piece in there that's tied up in there. We've always done your single highest score. So the top three, first, second, and third gets points.
Yep.
Well, we also added a 2-point bonus will be awarded to drivers running a heat feature format. So if you think of something like Metal Mayhem, those guys are running heats and features. Like it just does not make sense for me to have a one and done class go out there, and then these guys work on their cars all weekend, and then each of them, last year we added the bonus for the higher money. So big compact team shows, or big big single class.
Yeah, and we know there's a lot more work that goes on behind the scenes for those kind of classes.
So we're bringing that back. That worked well.
Okay.
But there's not a lot of people that took advantage of it. So it'll be interesting this year to see if people take advantage of that. And then I just want to make sure that we're not missing. That's all that we'll go over right now. But the guidelines will be out soon. They're almost final. But really, just saying that out loud was a little nerve-wracking for me, but I'm glad you pushed me into that uncomfortable place, because it really is going to mean a lot to me to just know that every name that I'm working and managing is somebody that's proud to be a part of it.
Right.
Because if they're not, they don't have to be, right? Or if they just want to sign up just because they think they're going to do well. Like, Derby drivers are always going to figure out a way around, right?
Oh yeah.
which is why there will be more details to come about those signups and how it works. So there's not just somebody that waits all the way till the end of the year, and then they're like, okay, I guess I'll sign up now. So I got a little something in store for that. But
and you have the added incentive for those bonus points, which I think if you figure how much you pay for an entry into an event, for a chance to run for those 10 points, for example, here you have a barrier to entry. Consider it almost like another entry for another event. And how many points can you score through the whole? If you jump on early, how many more points can you rack up?
Yeah. So 100%, so
it's a whole nother strategy added to the piece that maybe somebody can actually use that strategy to their advantage.
That's, my
that's where I'm see Derby guys I'm already figuring out how can somebody jump on board, and there you go.
Michelle,
jump on early, guys.
Michelle, she's listened to me for too long, because if she heard me talking to somebody that was like complaining about not getting anything if they don't place, then she's like, just do better then. Like, you just got to do better. But essentially, like, somebody could sign up, run every show, and not place any. They wouldn't have been in our top 10, but they'd be pretty close, But then again, it's like, okay, well, that's not fair that this is me just talking. I've never thought this. That's not fair that this guy's going to be in 10th place and he's never even placed in a Derby. Well, I'll tell you what, if you run that whole schedule, I don't care if you placed or not, you have went to a place, and that's something we haven't touched on, watching what these guys, watching what they do. And I don't want to say too much before we get to JD, but seeing people go past what they ever dreamed was possible in the effort that they put in and the work they put in. Like, if that doesn't earn somebody credit to be in 10th place because they ran the whole schedule and took up on them bonus points,
They earned every single one of those points.
Every bit of it. That's
Absolutely.
right. But the last thing I want to touch on, Alex, before this one could get me in trouble, but Derby builds. Mm-hmm. So you're familiar with Derby builds with Mark Klein and the Derby Tees crew. So still, and this is probably why I haven't posted the guidelines mainly, because I'm thinking like a golden ticket type idea. But what it's going to be a raffle car. It's going to be turnkey. It's an all-inclusive package. The car will run at River City Rampage with Toast Promotions.
Okay.
So you're like, well, that's not a point show. We don't do River City Rampage. Well, that's why I talk about like a golden ticket, because the car will actually earn a few points to the winner just for winning the car.
Okay.
And then the car will compete at that show. And if they place, they're going to get
points towards
So they're going to be at a show where no other driver in the point series or at that show that night. Now, I don't know whether that means anything to any points chasers, but if you take all that away, it's a spotlight for the Unified Point Series to team up with Derby builds and do something fun that we'll remember forever. Cool. Yeah. And I'm gonna help build the car, because if my name's gonna be on it, I want to turn some welding wire in on it. Sweet. And wrenches on it, and it's gonna have the best parts money can buy. The engine's being built now, the rear, top to bottom, inside and out, brand new parts. So we have never taken parts for sponsorship because I just never wanted to manage it all. Yeah. So that's why we've always just did cash. But this has allowed some of those vendors that would have given parts. Now they can give parts.
Now they have the opportunity to be part of it.
And so, so that's going to take some cash out of the purse. But myself and Mark Klein believe that with this opportunity that we can put even more back into the purse. So we already talked about how the new layout for the promoters and that entry fee and raising that entry fee, how much more money that put into to the purse, projecting that this will do the same and just put more money in. And it, the car's going to be turnkey. It's going to be at the expo.
Do they get to keep it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's all inclusive.
That's sweet.
I already booked their hotel for Henry.
All right.
For Henry, Illinois. You heard it here first. That's why I said I'm gonna get in trouble with this one, because we have not went to the public with this yet.
Okay.
But it's coming. Like, I'm picking up a lot of parts at Sturgis. Again, the engine's being built right now. I won't get into detail information right now for vendors, but it's all inclusive. The hotel's already booked. Their armbands are going to be waiting for them for a family or whatever. Toast has got lined out. Toast Promotions, him and Andrew will have something cool for whoever it is. And I'm going to be there. I'm their pit man. Like,
that's awesome.
I want to help, I'm a story guy. I'm a story guy. If it could be either a friend or it could be somebody that I don't know that has the ability to put something like that, because maybe it's not somebody that would ever chase points, but that's pretty early. That's the beginning of May. That's the first weekend of May. That's really early. We don't have many shows before that. Yeah. And now they're going to get, they win. Okay. They get some points right off the rip. Now they just show up to their
own. And a bunch of equipment that might come in handy.
Brand new. Yeah. Brand new. Every bit of it, brand new. Best money can buy. And they go, maybe they don't score, maybe they do. It's a bonus point. It's a $10,000 show. So essentially, let's play that out. They win this raffle car because it'll be done, because they'll be part of the Derby build season, right? We keep mention that, like the 8 episodes or how many episodes of Derby builds there is, they're going to be a part of that and their family, and it's just going to be great. And so they win. Let's say they win. And then they go ahead and register for the Unified Point Series. Now, when they run a show, they already get 2 points. So whatever, let's throw a fake number out there. Let's say it's 5 points that they get for just winning the car. Now they got 7. They go win River City Rampage. It's heat and feature. There's 2 points. Now they got 9. it's 20-point show.
Mm-hmm.
Now they got 29. They got 30 points. I mean, it's the golden ticket opportunity.
doubt.
And that's the slimmest chance. There's way more of a chance that whoever wins it could not give a crap about, and that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get a turnkey car, but what they're going to be a part of is helping raise a lot of money
Sure.
for the drivers of the Unified Point Series, because every bit of that money, every dollar, I won't take a dollar of it,
Right.
will
Go
go
right
straight
back
in the
in.
purse.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's a whole nother.
I'm laying a lot on you,
Yeah,
man.
I'm processing all that. That's a lot. That's awesome.
That's why when you went there with some of the things that you've went to, I'm like, I'm over here grinning like, oh, okay.
You know
Yeah,
all the other
let's
stuff
go. Maybe we should not plan more often.
Oh, there we go. Well, Mark, do you want to start off at the through the list? So you have the top 10, but then I know you have other prizes on top of all those, like Mad Dog and some others. Do you want? Maybe we start with those. Let's start with those and work our way up towards the top, if you don't mind.
You're right. We got a top 10. We got a Mad Dog. We had a highest placing film on a highest placing youth driver. So from the top.
Yeah, and this is all on your website, by the way, right?
Yes.
Yep.
If you might have peeked at it or you've been on there, every year has past winners.
Mm-hmm.
And Shannon, she just like, we talked about aligning passion before this all started.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's got a little bit of a passion in this website stuff. And I'm always telling her, like, look, if you need a like, all you got to do is tell me and I'll buy it. Like, I want whatever to make it cool. But she spends hours just trying to come up with different, and every year's different. So like she likes to switch it up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But starting off with the Mad Dog, tell me, Alex Fasco, have you ever heard the last name Yeager?
Only all the time when you're announcing Jaegers go Jaeger bomb. Those guys are awesome. They're awesome and just a blast to watch.
You know what you just said, they are a blast to watch, but off the track, like, they love Demolition Derby as much as anybody I've ever met. And whether it's the daughter running or the brother, or, I mean, some shows, like, I think cousins come out of the woodwork. But listen, Justin Yeager, and I did not know Justin as much as I knew his brother Ricky before this year. And I've told them both the same thing. Like, hey, you ever hit me like that? You better make it count. Because I seen Justin Yeager hit somebody this year so hard that I thought the guy was going to fly out of the car. His entire body from the waist up was out, like over top of the engine compartment. Like, I thought he was coming out of the car. And it all happened so fast. You know that from standing on the sidelines. But I think what impresses me the most about his style is he has the ability to get all the way to the bottom, and he does sometimes. And he had some wins. He had some wins. 36 points. He was just outside the top 10. I think he got 11th or 12th place. And I said over 550 some, drivers, he was right outside the top 10. And he got the most Mad Dogs. So the way that works, the Mad Dogs don't get points towards the Unified Point Series, but the promoters, they give out Reapers, they give out Hammers, they give out, everybody calls it something different, and they've got their own little catchy phrases to it. But Justin Yeager told me early on this year, I want that trophy. And I believed him. And John Shipley told me, I want that ring on the first year. And I believed him. It was in a gas station parking lot. I'll never forget it. He looked me dead in the eye and said, I want that ring. I believed him as much as I've ever believed anybody. And I thought the same thing when Justin Yeager told me that. He said, Mark, I want that trophy. And it did not come easy, because Pinkerton was right there on it. Sean Reese, like, he was our last year Mad Dog, and he kept mentioning it. Like, at one time he was like right up there close to a tie for first, or and you just never know, because the fact that we allow that they can get as many Mad Dogs in one show as they want. So that really puts a lot of pressure on promoters. to be straight up.
Right.
Because like they've got this guy that's coming to support him. He's bringing 4 or 5 cars and he's in their ear. Like, this is why I'm here. And there's an expectation, you know, there's like, maybe who knows like what those conversations look like. So like I always try to watch to make sure those promoters are, or if they're getting mad dogs that they seem rightfully so. But, with
I don't think anybody on that track would argue against that
with
one.
Justin Yeager, listen, there was never a question. I remember, I'll never forget when I think he locked it up, and I don't know the show, but we were in PA, and he knew that if he got one more, like that might be it.
That might seal the deal.
And at the end, you know, that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on the Mad Dog announcement. And I said, and the 720, and I paused because his brother's number is 728. And when I paused, it was like everything, time stopped, and I'm watching him from the crow's nest, and I said 7, and I'll never forget seeing his family celebrate. I'll never forget, as soon as I said 7, the arms went up, they just got the cup. They just got it. They got it. And
how awesome.
It was truly awesome to see a whole family so excited about something. And that's what we were talking about. Like, they weren't excited about any kind of money that they'll get. Right. They were excited that now he's got that. He got exactly what he set out to do. He met his goal. I got nothing to add.
Yeah.
Stuff fires me up.
Makes your hair stand up, right?
It does. So, Justin Yeager, man, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. And so congratulations on getting that Mad Dog. And I'm glad we kind of mentioned that he was just outside the top 10 because he was right there. Oh, do we have here our highest placing female? Another story of somebody setting a goal and reaching it. And that never gets old. That never gets old. McKenna Saylor, I think, is 16 years old. She's from, her hometown is Stoneboro. So the Stoneboro Fair.
Yep.
I'm not sure her and her dad, Mark, who's usually riding with her and helping her on the cars. I'm not sure exactly what town they live in, but McKenna is another one. And, you know, it's not like she came up to me and shook my head and said, I want that trophy, you know, the way that it's happened before. But she said it. I'll never forget. I was trying to hang my banner, and when people come up and ask me if I need help, like, I hope they're serious, because like, you're not going to catch me turning it down. So I usually tell them I need all the help in life I can get, and I mean it. Like, I really do appreciate when those people show up, and she did. And I'll never forget, man, she's like, how are we going to, I'm like, well, I don't know how we're going to weigh it down. And she's like carrying sandbags, one in each hand, like 50-pound sandbags. And she's like, tying hog twine to these sandbags into the banner, and now the banner's hanging up. And just a bright future for Demolition Derby and just mankind to have a girl like McKenna Saylor, who probably showed multiple animals that week and probably cleaned multiple stalls and probably worked at some point at the night doing something and worked on her car and running the Derby. And we crossed paths with her throughout the year this year. Her and her dad travel a little bit. Like, you can't put a price on those memories. As a father of 2 daughters, it chokes me up a little bit. I just to think the memories that they've had in that car. And for him to send me a text and say, now, what did you get? You know, he's like, what did you get started here? You know, sorry, McKenna, your dad was like, not as into it as you were. No. But this is a dad texting me that, like, man, where's this show at? How far is Eaton, Ohio from Stoneboro? Like, to think that he said, well, McKenna wants to go after this highest placing female, and to know that people like Melanie Reed was right there. So it was down to the end. And when Melanie didn't show up for the Turkey Derby, like, I just knew that McKenna had it. So she wanted that trophy. When I posted that highest placing female trophy that Jeffy's Fab Farm makes for those folks, she messaged me for that. Like,
she claimed it.
yeah, that needs to be with me. So I can't wait for her to get that. And, they're going to get the big checks and a little bit of money and but again, what a memory for her and her dad and mom, grandma. Her grandma was in the crow's nest with me one night and and watching her grandma watch, she didn't look a nervous wreck. And I'm thinking what could a grandma possibly be thinking as she's watching? Because I'm writing a story, a logical story that she's probably thinking, man, I wish I would have done that when I was her age. Yeah. Or maybe I want to do it now.
Wow.
So yeah, good stuff, man.
36 points too.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So again, tied with Yeager, right outside 11th or 12th place. We have a highest place in youth, but we'll wait because one of those folks did breach their way into the top 10. So we'll save that.
Okay.
So to our top 10, 10th place, Mr. Mark Metz. So Mark is out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Mark is somebody who, when I talked about people sending me messages, and it never ceases to amaze me when somebody out of the blue sends a message. That was Mark. He started asking questions. He said he wanted to go after it. And so we crossed paths with him enough time for him to rack up 50 points. And if I'm not mistaken, we got to see him run his first big car ever. And I think that was in Washington, PA or somewhere like that. So that I'm glad that memory came up because that's to think that there's this mini car guy that, he's derbied for a while and he's never ran a full size. It's either because, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But he did because that was the opportunity that was ahead for him to get some points. Right. And he actually went out there and I think either won or he scored points. He looked comfortable out there. So I remember him talking about it after the Derby it's just once you're out there and it's another steering wheel and
I think he also ran a minivan. He got in another, which that was another class, I think, outside of his comfort zone too.
Minivan, so mini car, minivan, full size stock. The only thing that could have capped the icing on the cake for him is if we seen him out there in a motor swap. That would have been really cool.
A challenge for next year.
Yeah, Mark Metz, you heard it here. We want to see you in a motor swap. So you just convince your wife, let you. I don't know if you've got your Christmas list out yet, but another great person. Mm-hmm. Just on and off the track, another great person. Mr. Bill Miller. Wow. If you would have told us early on that he wasn't either going to be our guy or be in the top 3, I would have told you were crazy. Now, what's cool about that, because he showed up.
Yeah.
He showed up and pushed the pace. And he's, what I knew him as a pro class type builder. What I didn't know is he had some background in mini cars. So I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
So that played to his advantage a little bit, or a lot, because he was showing up. He was one traveling. We mentioned it earlier, making some long hauls to PA. I'll never forget seeing him and his crew after the 12-hour drive. Mind you, fuel prices this year. His fuel bill was more than he made for the points he scored at this Derby. Mm-hmm. It's no lie. And that's so when I talk about that registration and enhancing the driver experience, how cool would it have been to go give a guy like that a $100 gas or something, Sure. That would have barely scratched at it, but it's just something to say, man,
thank you.
Kudos to you. Thank you. But Bill is one that our first 2 years actually reached out and said that was something he wanted to go after. Mm-hmm. And it just never worked out.
Because he had an event.
Yeah.
That was on the series
this year. Yeah. So that's something that he and Trevor Petke and some of their friends got into this year. And that was a successful show. We're going back there this year. So that kind of, it's funny you say that because that's about the time that he kind of just phased off. He was like showing up every show before that. Like I'll never forget the bloodbath that he survived in good old Stoneboro. That name keeps coming up, but like that local crowd, like they're not the people. Now they're the people that's going to help you in the pits or let you come down to their garage and weld. But it's a bloodbath out there on the track, and
we saw it.
It was brutal. He squeezed out a third place. You know, he went home with some points, but he scored in mini cars. He scored in minivans. He scored in full size motor swap. He was doing it. He was showing up. Like I always say, like it discourages other people. It makes them feel like, well, I can't keep up with that guy. And that's what I thought he was doing. And I thought, Bill Miller might be our guy. And then we went, and his show was successful. We had a successful show, and then it just kind of phased off. And like the backstory, he bought a big record. Like he just, life shows up, right? That, like when people, that's why I said that in the beginning, when people say those things, like, I don't have time for that, or I've got this, like, that's all real. Like we all have lives.
Right.
And so for whatever reason, you know, like I'd love to see him back after it, especially since we kind of shrunk the schedule up a little bit, because he showed that he can switch it up a little bit and score in about anything. So he could certainly be a contender.
No doubt.
Gotta love the pick with the shades too. Oh boy.
Here's another one.
Well, not only is that another one, but I think, don't quote me,
okay, he
may be the only person that's been in the top 10 every year.
I'm just thinking back to I have last year pretty good in my mind, but I'm still thinking through,
because Steven Sickles was not in the top 10 the first year.
No, and Scotty missed it.
Yeah, so I think Don Santel is the only person that has showed up.
I think you're right.
And you know, he kind of falls into that category a little bit, where it's like, it'd be interesting to see if somebody like him would sign up, you know, because he's the prime example of what I always said. Like, you don't even have to care about it. But if we cross paths and you win, and because I have some shows in Illinois, because he like usually is on that Wicked circuit, we just cross paths. Now he chased it the first year. Yeah. He chased it hard. But then the second year, and then this year, it kind of looked like that fire was, and like, I'll never forget. I think it was Spring Explosion. We were talking on the track afterwards, and he said something about, "I hate you, Mark," or something. And like, I seen that look in his eye, and I'm like, uh-oh. Like, because, I mean, he's definitely one of those people that once that switch is flipped, like, they're in. And I thought, I just, like I'm swallowing an apple. I thought, like, uh-oh, here we go. Like, you know, and I told him, like, part of that was exciting for me, and part of it was like, uh-oh, like, hey, like, boy, oh boy, because when he comes, he's coming. And man, there's just some good memories for me this year. He brought like a minivan out to Richmond, Indiana, which is like 20 minutes from here. So for that, like, I'll never forget seeing him and Traver Jones pull up to the driver's meeting, and Traver Jones's infamous crazy golf cart that everybody knows. That golf cart, if you're at a big show, you see that golf cart, you know, Traver's in the house. And here comes him, Butch, and Jody on this golf cart. And like, they pull up to the driver's meeting, and there they sit. Like, they're in the middle of nowhere, and there's not 30 people surrounding them, you know. They're just sitting on that golf cart waiting for the driver's meeting to start. And I remember hearing like these two kids talking, and the one kid was like, I can't believe TJ McCullough's here or something, but TJ was not there.
He wasn't even there.
Like, but Santel and Jones is there, and like, that's just people were starstruck. It was amazing. But and he did well in that van. And I remember Steven Sickles saying, like, he's figuring some things. And the cream's always going to rise. Like, it doesn't matter what the rules are or what, like, if somebody like him or anybody that just does well at building, a precise builder would get into half-ton trucks or whatever, like they're gonna figure it out how to make it run. So like he actually scored in a van at that Derby. I think it was like, oh my God, what have I created? Right. But a lot of fun, and it's always fun to cross paths.
It's good to see him again.
Yep, for sure. Oh boy. Penwells equals wagons is what, if you're thinking about social media and you think about the Penwells, everybody knows that if a station wagon, mid-70s GM wagon goes for sale on Facebook, perceptually it seems like it doesn't matter the price.
Right.
It's gone.
It's gone.
People's tagging Tony Penwell and him and his dad, Billy Penwell. I've been on the track with them, friends with them years, and now there's Cam Penwell. And
third generation? Is that right?
That's what I know of. I don't know if Billy's dad, like, I don't know if there's a fourth, so maybe that's...
Because I know that they've shared the pictures. It was like 3 generations.
Yes. So Billy Penwell, Tony Penwell, Cam Penwell, 3 generations. And I just cannot express, like Tony would tell me and share, like, man, when we're on our way home from these derbies, like, Dad and Cam, man, they just can't get enough of those videos. You mentioned the after Derby videos, because I really do pour my heart. Like, I really, that's part of that connection that we talk about that's really important to me. And it's important to people like that too, because it takes them back to that whatever the memory is that I'm sharing. And Cam Penwell, we watched him win the Bash for Cash, so the Smith Metalworks, the youth full-size program.
That was a heck of a battle.
That was a battle, and God love Dylan Meyer, because, like, it was anybody's game. And then it kind of, like, ended quirky and everybody thought they won. But like, honestly, like, you take the trophies aside, what those kids and then everybody else in that field did for all of us as fans, like, it was astronomical to watch them wheel the cars the way that they did.
No doubt.
Cam smokes a brand new and gets the win. And so that starts it off. And then we start seeing him travel a little bit. And Tony's messaging me, like, tell us more about this. And the next thing you know, Tony, Billy, and Cam are, like, showing up in Pennsylvania. And
in a Crown Vic.
Dude.
Or
yeah, so Penwells equals wagons,
right?
But let's start here. Cam is 11 years old. 11 years old. You have kids. Like, process that. 11 years old, and Cam on the Unified Point Series won, not just scored, won in a Crown Vic, a W body, and a wagon. They show up to the Turkey Derby, Billy Penwell's old wagon, one of them from the Bash. Like, this thing was wadded before they brought it, and they straightened it all out. Oh man, talk about a way to end the season.
No doubt.
And so Cam not only snuck into 7th place with that win in that wagon, but he snuck in and sealed the deal for our highest place in youth.
That's awesome.
So he showed up twice. He got the highest place in youth trophy he's got coming from Jeffy. And then Ruts Fab's working on his 7th place trophy. 11 years old, Alex. Like,
wow.
If that's wrong, like, if what we're doing is wrong, like, I don't ever want to be a part of what right is, because it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So, Tony, as a father, just say this wholeheartedly, man, as a father, to see you creating those memories with your son, and as a son, to see you creating those memories with your dad has certainly inspired me this year from both lanes, from both ways I look at that. And I can't wait to see what 2023 brings.
The future is bright for that young man.
Yes. And he's ate up with it. Like, he loves it. And Well, he could be doing so much worse things, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
Like talk about setting yourself up in life to have that type of skill set at 11 years old, and then to grow into a sport that we all love. It's just like, Cam, congratulations, my man. Your 11-year-old self has earned your way into our top 10, the Unified Point Series, and you're our highest place in youth. Speaking of the devil, the first thing I'll say about my good friend Traver Jones is, have you ever, so think about those people that just show up for people in ways that most people will never know about. They don't put it out there. They just, Traver gives like as much or more than anybody that I've ever seen or met, in just little ways. Something as simple as, we're in Proctorville, Ohio, Lawrence County, Ohio. And like, I've got to control my emotion at these shows because, one, I want people like Traver to come and have a good time, but I also want locals to think that they're valued and important too. So it's like, I got to be careful getting caught up in that people pleasing and just kind of let things play out. But I'll never forget, that's a hairy place like that. Ask Steven Sickles about that place. And Traver shows up, and it's like those people were touched that he was there. And I'll never forget Levi Walters and whether it was his girlfriend or their people. I remember hearing Traver tell him, like, come back to the trailer, and he gave him a bunch of swag and a bunch of apparel. And
that's awesome.
You know, he didn't sell it to him, probably. He just gives it. You know, you see crazy stuff everywhere. And like, what was $70 or $80 worth of apparel that those people, like, they went to their truck and trailer and they were on cloud nine. And when they wear that, they know that I met Traver Jones and he gave me this, and they're so proud of it. And it's hard for me personally to embrace, like, when you get that praise from people, you know, because we're all so humble, and, you know, we just try to push that somewhere else. But Traver's as humble as a guy as I've ever met. But I hope that he embraces the fact that because he was there on that night, what it meant to those people. And that's what I've told Butch over the years. Like, I hope you understand what it means to people to see your truck and trailer pull on that property, including me. My arm hair's standing up now, including me, because I'm a Demolition Derby fan. And when I see those people that I know that just put everything they have into the sport I love, that they're there, like, what a blessing. And so to see Traver, and I know he didn't want to be in those mini cars or the minivans, but he did. And
that's a hairy drive down there.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it than that. I was probably one of the few times driving to Derby, I was like, what am I doing? What is Mark doing to me today?
And I'm sure they think that sometimes too, but like, what a memory that created for them. And definitely well earned and great to see Traver in there. So man, we're in the top 5. Right. How are we doing? Are we doing okay?
We're doing great.
Okay. So top 5, Dennis Hogan. So right off the rip, Dennis Hogan shows up to Daytona Beach, Florida with JD Lorene. JD was in our top 10 last year and said, you know, maybe I'd like to try for it. Had interest. Didn't say I'm taking the ring, but had interest. And they did one of those 2-man extremes for their first time, and they went out there and made it look like they'd been doing it forever. And that track was concrete, so like that's not something most people. It's almost like derbying on an ice rink.
Yep.
And so if you're in full control of the car, it's a different animal. But being out there, and Don and Jody was out there in that heat. I mean, it was a banger heat. Yeah. Yep. So Dennis Hogan, turns out he's like JD's right-hand man and sounds like some mentoring. You know, we all have that older person that kind of showed us some of the ropes and maybe taught us some things that we didn't know before. So it's been interesting to see him like showing up there with JD and then rightfully so, man. He's down there in the bottom 3 quite often, and that earned him 5th place. Like he was actually trying for that last ring, the 3rd place ring, which is what's sitting on the table. No, that's actually our 2nd place ring, but we have that 3rd place ring. And he actually, I thought we'd see him at the Turkey Derby. Like I thought he was locked on it. But Dennis had a great year, and it got him in the top 5. And I know he's proud of that because he shared, when he saw this image, he shared it. So Dennis, you should be proud of that, man, because to have the name, it's just the names that we've read so far, and to think that your name's in that same conversation and you're in the top 5, man, congratulations.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ty Richards. Here's another one. When the year started, Daytona Beach, Florida, that was a bonus point show. So that was the first time we rolled out our bonus points, and Ty Richards gets a big win there in a 2-door oval window. Just a machine.
3-hour feature. He had to endure for that.
Yes. But then he showed up again at Sturgis, and then he showed up to where he actually got out in a lead where, he's another one that life just kind of did not allow for him to show up every other weekend. And he was open about that. I appreciated his honesty, because I'd rather somebody tell me that than to kind of bull crap me a little bit. But he was pretty straight up about it. But we continued to cross paths because it turns out he's really good friends with Dave Meyer and Dylan Meyer. We already mentioned from the Bash for Cash. But when we went up to Michigan, so it turns out Ty's family is from up there. I think it was, man, if I'm not mistaken, forgive me, but I think like grandma's from up there. So there was some family visiting, and we crossed paths with him up there, and he scored again up there. So
that was an interesting venue. There was a lot of people who showed up to that particular show. I think it was Berrien Springs, right?
That was another one. Yes.
I was like, wow, these guys really made this trip.
That was insane.
Because it was just like, that was the one that somehow everybody threw the dart at the calendar at the same one.
It was insane.
And showed up.
So the Midway, like the cars are driving down the Midway. Like, I didn't know if we were going to get an invite back there this year because we caused such a malfunction of that fair. Like I think they wanted some cars. I don't think they wanted that kind of party.
They started coming through. I grabbed my phone and I put it up on TikTok because I was just like car after car after car.
It was, I thought I was going to get arrested coming in because like I told the cop like, hey, I work here. And he said, no, it's full. And I'm like, I got to go that way. And I mean, this cop actually, he was cussing at me like it.
You called me right after that.
You were there. I'm like, I'm not going to go to jail. So I'm out there like driving down the Midway in my truck. It was a nightmare, but, and also got sick that night. So that was a rough one. But Ty Richards just showed up this year. Every time that we crossed paths with him, he was in the top 3.
He made every show count that he ran.
And he stayed right up in there until he was actually passed. And then he stayed up in the top 3 all the way until the very end. And we'll get to that. But definitely no doubt that if he ever got the interest, he would certainly be a contender.
Absolutely.
And then there was our top 3. Scotty Drevnick sneaks in at the last minute and takes 3rd place, takes the last championship ring from Ty Richards. What's up, Crash Fanatics? The Iceman.
Yep.
Scotty Drevnick. I can hear the cowbell now from Ice Mama. Ice Mama.
Yep.
Another family experience. It's like, I mean, she brings cupcakes one time. She treats a bee sting one time for me like that. Well, I'm not even going to get into that story. But another story of like, here's this 16-year-old kid who when other people are going home or going back to the hotel because it's raining and it's just nasty at the final confrontation, not him. He's working on his car because there was no cap of how much you could work on your car.
Yep.
He's working on his car. He's putting in the work. He's putting in the time. And that's what I'll say about the Iceman. He is not bashful about his driving style. And there's a lot of people that don't like it. Well, you know, what you tell those people is like, if you don't like it, come do something about it. But now I don't know that he says that, but that's always been my mentality. And when he locked up, when he catapulted himself into third place, we talked about our mad dog, Justin Yeager. And then I talked about, and then sometimes there's brothers, there's cousins, there's all these people, and Scotty Dravnik. Now we talked about Cam Penwell too. So like this gets a little tricky. So Scotty goes out, runs one car, gets down to the bottom, then doesn't score points.
Yep.
Strike one. Another car, he's trying to put it back together for another class, and something happens where they don't even get on the track. Strike two. Now he's got one chance, and he needs those points. Like if he's going to get in there and take that third place ring, he needs those points. And third place pays $5,000. So like there was a lot on the line there. And he's got a car for the hardcore compacts, which you would not catch me out there. He's got a car for it, but his dad wanted to go out there because this is the last strike. There's strike one, strike two. This is it. This is their last chance. And they've worked all weekend, like just killed themselves. And somehow, some way, look, I was confused. Cam Penwell never left that Derby, which that confused me because Cam, Billy, Tony, after every time they would run and score, they would leave because they got to drive all the way back to Ohio.
Sure.
Well, this night they didn't leave. And the reason is because Cam's W body that I said that he won in, he had won earlier that night, had the Iceman painted down the side of it. But I did not know that. I thought that Scott Sr. was going to run Cam's car. Scotty had his car. I was confused in that feature. And when it got down to it, there's still the Iceman, the W body. And like, I thought that was Senior. I just thought they painted Iceman down the side. And like, they start derbying. So it's down to like, Jaegers are everywhere. And
driving like Jaegers.
And I'm saying it's Scotty, but I'm still confused. Like, is it like, I still don't even know who's in the car, but I think it's Scotty. And I remember him sitting between a dead car and seeing, like Jaeger swarm him like bees. I'm thinking he's going to die. Like they have already said, like they've killed everybody and this kid's going to die. I'm going to watch and blink your eyes and it's down to him and Justin Yeager. How he survived that far, pure driving. Comes down to him and Justin Yeager. He's got the bagger reputation. So in like your logical story, he's about to die. Justin Yeager's about to do it. And Scotty Dravnik turned that thing loose. They're going front to front. Like he's pile driving. Like it's a bloodbath to where that's when I was really confused. Like, is that Senior?
Yeah,
like,
because that's how Senior drives.
I had no idea. It was Scotty, and he beat him. He won that Derby. And Cam Penwell's car that Cam had won in earlier the night for his youth
to seal the deal.
And then Scotty does it in that same car. Instead of Tony and his dad driving back and getting back at a decent time, they stay there half the night because it's the last heat of the night. And then they got to drive back through the middle of the night because they said, we know what it's like to sacrifice and be chasing points. And if there's some way we can help you. Now, they didn't give him. It's not like they gave him points. He had to go out there and get them.
Absolutely.
But you talk about camaraderie and sportsmanship and two families they'll have that bond forever. That's a story that they'll never forget.
Yeah, and that's another family that lives and breathes Derby. I have filmed those guys for many years, running a lot of other shows that were never part of the point series. that they were running it adjacent to it just because they love it so much.
Yep. And they're all over the place. And they were this year too. Like, he didn't just stay glued to the point series. He was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So Scotty, my man, 16 years old, like, I don't know if your friend's got any stories that good, but that's a good story to tell, man.
Take care of those crash fanatics.
Yes. TikTok it up, my friend. Look where that takes us.
Now, that's a name we were probably not expecting to see on this list as much. I say that because I rewatched on the way here. I rewatched last year's podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a very clear that Steven was like, "Nope, done, never doing it again." But yet he was registered for Daytona.
Yeah.
So it was kind of this wild card of like, what's he got up his sleeve?
Yeah, I'm like, cool story. I thought the same thing, and he did not score points in Daytona, and he did not say I'm chasing points. So like, an easy story would have been like, okay, if he would have won, then maybe he was going to, but he didn't. So then it's, like, there's all these things going through my mind, but he's another one that we just crossed paths with. And finally, I just put him on the spot at some point in the year, and I'm like, are you chasing or what? Like, just tell me. And he said he was. He said he was just kind of trying to play a difference and, playing behind the scenes. Like, that was part of his strategy. And, I mean, there he is in the top two.
148 points.
148 points, over 10 wins this year, I think, or right about. And he's going to get a $10,000 check, which he earned because
he earned for sure.
He traveled. I mean, I can't think of a state that we went to that he didn't show up in. And I think what I seen in him is once he actually admitted that he was chasing, like I started to see it bother him a bit. Like when things, like I'm thinking about Michigan when like him and JD survives this. It was a lynch mob. Like they bury him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They survived. Steven survived. And I think got some points. JD did not survive, but then JD brought his mini car back out and entered it in the full size. And I think Steven was probably okay with that when it happened, but then afterwards, like they
because JD got the win.
He got the win. They just could not compete with that little car, and I think that deflated him a little bit. Like, whether it was right or wrong that the promoter did it, like, that's not what this is about. It was just like, he just, like, that was like his chance to gain. You know what I mean? Like, he finally scored and JD didn't. And then JD comes back and wins. And so I think that was a little deflating. It has to be, like, I don't know what it was for him, but like just watching it, like I could feel the energy of him coming off the track.
But he still kept traveling, kept racking up the points
after it. And it wasn't until the very end that I think he told me he had signed up for Blizzard Bash before he ever, like, when he said he really genuinely didn't have any anticipation to go that far. And now he's signed up for the biggest indoor show. And so, like, there's no getting out of that. And he, that's a bucket list thing. He wants to go out there. So, like, there came a time where he had to decide, was he actually going to try to beat JD, or was he still going to go to Blizzard Bash, I think is probably the way that he was looking at it, at least. And he went to Blizzard Bash, so he got to check that box, and JD went on to, that takes us to the top. What a story.
No doubt.
I've been trying to bank some energy for the very end, and rightfully so. The time that we've taken, these drivers have earned every bit of it. 202 points. That's the highest amount of points anybody's ever scored in the Unified Point Series. Even when we had 38 shows, that's That's the highest. So he broke that record. I think 15 wins. He broke the win record. And what a lot of people don't know about JD, one, I thought he was a pro class, full-size builder because he's got multiple Collier engines. Like, I seen him at the Near-At trailer before. Like, he's got some parts. What I didn't know is that he could run mini cars, and he turned into quite the handful everywhere that we went. My hometown, Preble County.
There was like darn near 30 cars in that one heat.
Yeah. So he proved that he could drive a van, a mini car, a full-size car. And I think it was fun to watch him get back in that full-size motor swap car because that's where he's comfortable. And he won and got Mad Dog that night. Like, and he was actually in the chase for a Mad Dog. Like, he was right there. Yeah. I don't know if it was one or a combination of the things, if it was that, he was tired of hearing people talk about him bagging for points, or if he was just so glad to be back in something that you can use and tear some cars up with it. I think that, like, a combination of those two things, like, he just went on a rampage for about 3 or 4 shows, and I think he got a Mad Dog at every one of them. But I remember somebody saying that, John Shipley is self-employed, Steven Sickles is self-employed. At least that's what I think. I don't know their full stories, but I remember hearing somebody say that there's a trend there that's the only way anybody would have time to do something like that. But earlier, when we started this, you said people staying up through the night driving and going to work the next day. That was JD Loreen. He's a blue collar guy with a 40 to 50 hour a week job. That the behind the scenes is he kind of bartered time where, he was supposed to work like those Saturdays. Yep. So he agreed to work Sundays. So he would. Very rarely did him and it's another part of the story that's just fascinating. Him and his mom,
she was going to get in the cars for him, and
she was very much part of the journey. And I don't remember them getting a lot of hotels. They'd show up early. They'd do everything they needed to do. They'd score their points and then go get a lemon shake-up.
And
give loaded fries.
Yep. And then maybe hook you up with a Diet Mountain Dew and then hit the road, right?
Bring me, hey, that's God's honest truth. I would see him with a lemon shake-up like, man, I don't know if they're your sponsor, but they should be. And Mama Lorene would bring me a Diet Mountain Dew, and like that was the ritual. And it was funny. Very few times that he didn't score points, she didn't bring me that Diet Mountain Dew, and I told her, like, there's something to that Diet Mountain Dew. Like, you need to bring that every time. But the story, what son does that for, like, you and I aren't mothers, we're fathers. So, like, we can only imagine the bond between a mother and a son, or a mother and a daughter. But what kid does that for their parent? Like, right. I've never known one. And, like, just to see the joy on her face, I'll never forget hugging her when he locked it up. Like, and it was in my hometown, and it was, it meant a lot to see that and to see how happy he was. And it did not come easy. Like, he had to tear his car up. Just to think that, what memories, the conversations on the 5 to 6 hour, the 8 hour drives, a mother and a son. Like, we've seen husbands, wives, we've seen buddies. We've never seen a mother and a son, this full-time working guy that's driving home with his mom, and he's going to work on Sunday, and she's going to unload the car or whatever, and like going and picking up cars for him. And, like, what a story.
No doubt. I mean, there's way more stories involved in that we got to see that can't even touch on them.
No, it and like to be able to crown him champion at was it Buried Alive,
Mm-hmm.
and they're in a Team Extreme car, so he's the passenger. And I'll never forget, I'm like coaching him. Okay, this is what's going to happen. I've got the stage set up out there. I'm going to say these few things. I'm going to call for you. You drive the car out there. And he's sitting in the passenger seat, and I'm like, are you good to drive this thing out there like that? And he just like nodded his head, yeah. And he didn't smile, did nothing. I call his name, music's blaring, like the crowd's cheering, and here he comes in the passenger seat of that full-size motor swap car, ringing that Collier through the stands, and does a donut from the passenger seat, driving with his left hand. Like, I ain't never seen nothing like it.
Whips it right around right in front of the stage, and there we go.
Champion. And then they go out there and they win with darn near no steering. It's just
proving again why he deserved to be at that top spot.
It meant a lot to me when Steven done the same thing. So puts a little bit of pressure on future champions, because like for Steven to go out there and win after we just crowned it, it just like backs it up. And then here's JD and Dennis, and right off the rip they lose steering, and I'm like, oh boy, but there they are out there, and they're at the bottom, and proved why Dennis Hogan's in the top 10 and JD is our 2022 Unified Point Series champion.
Yeah, and there's some wreckage and remnants of some of the carnage.
Yeah. When people text me and say, what's your address? I never ask why. I don't think much about it. I just give it to them, and shows up today with some pieces of metal off of, this is actually his champion car. So I remember him. Oh, that's off. I'm like, how did he get one of my stickers? But it looks like it's off of probably Corey Dakin with that makes our champion wraps and the champion roof sign. Like, this is literally off that champion car. It's got Lorene, it's got his number, and then it's got our ME527 announcing logo there. So as you can see in the garage, I kind of hang on to some memorable things. So it's definitely something that I'll just throw up on the wall, and it'll be a piece of a memory. There was a nice thank you card with it, and just the things people say to me. Like, I always ask God, like, I don't know what I've done to be this blessed, but like just the things that people say, and like what he said in that card, it makes those long drives, it makes the hours, it makes it all worth it to know that we're touching people in that way. That
it's so much bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, what a year.
What a year. Yeah. What a year. What a podcast, man. You talk about pumping out some info here.
Striking some real emotions too. I mean, we saw what these guys went through, and they have, every single one of them have my utmost of respect.
Yeah.
Because from a personal level, I don't know if I could do that.
You just said, like, take yourself back to what I said in the beginning. Like, I was not just saying, these are the excuses that people make. That's real. You really don't know. You really don't know. You really don't know if you could do it. And it's not until that fire gets lit, whatever lights that fire in these drivers, it's like when it happens to us, it's like there's no other option. This is what we're going to do. And when people get on a roll, when they get that fire burning, you kind of get that momentum behind you. And then you see people 15 wins in 1 year. Like, to see people do things that even you said, I don't know that I could do that. I'm sure he didn't believe it neither. And maybe he's still thinking, like, how did that even happen? But it did. And he did it.
And just think of the stories that we're going to get to talk about next year.
Yeah, right. Because we did say, like, we haven't had the same story yet. So, Alex, thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone, and like for me to put myself in that vulnerable place and share some of the sensitive stuff that we've got moving forward to really find out, like, who really wants to be a part of this.
That's
who
what's
wants a
exciting.
piece of this is going to be interesting.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time, and I hope everybody's enjoyed getting to hear all about this season and how everything has come in to be. Where can they find more information about what you got going on?
527unifiedseries.com. That's what we've been on here. You've got sponsors, you've got regulations, you've got your events, past champions, the leaderboard. This gets updated after every show, all the way to past photos and videos, but they can also go to the ME527 announcing page on Facebook. And you're not going to quite sneak off without me just saying, Alex, like when I was talking about Santel and Traver, and when people see their vehicle, their truck and trailer pull into the Derby, just seeing your car pull in my driveway, or seeing your car with those graphics down the side pull into a show and BF wherever we're at, like, I hope you understand what that means to people and people like me. And you keep leaning into that gift you got, man, because you have touched the sport, and you're going to continue to touch the sport as long as you want to.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. And to me, it's a duty to capture these memories for these guys. Because think about somebody like JD 20 years from now, got a little kid sitting on his lap. All that's left is the videos and the stories. That's what's exciting, as we get to capture it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome.
I don't even know how I get a little teary eyed here, because it's one of those things, like I do it without even in them driving home. I kind of tend to work in a vacuum, and it'll be exciting to know in 20 years the impact that I was able to hopefully have with somebody.
Woo, get me fired up now, boy.
All right.
Thank you, Alex.
Awesome. I cannot wait for the 2023 season. It starts here. Okay. It's this point at the end of January, right?
Yeah. Redneck Rumble, baby.
So you get a couple weeks off, enjoy it.
Yes.
And we'll get fired all up. So hopefully you guys liked the podcast. If you did, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you share it all out for everybody who maybe would like to hear about this. Definitely, again, if you want to see the rewards, I did film that, so you can see exactly how the donut and how the story Mark, the way you can spin words and tell the story in front of all those people. You guys got to check out the video. It's just, you did awesome.
Thank you.
An awesome job to everybody who won points, and cannot wait to see what you guys will do for the Sport Demolition Derby in 2023. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.